Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the session. So, it's a new session again on Kerala set. Yesterday, you guys had a paper one session by Jobin sir, right? So, tonight again, we are back with a new revision session for paper two of Kerala set. All right, are you all ready? Great. So, let me start by sharing my screen with you all. Before that, I will also open the chat box of your live chat, that is. Yeah, so yeah. Okay, right. So let me share my screen with you guys so that you can see the questions and all. Yes, I hope it's visible to you, the screen that is. Okay. So welcome again to our fourth revision session of Kerala set. Okay. Are you all ready? Yes. Let's look at the first question for tonight. In Shelley's elegiac pastoral Adonais, written on the death of John Keats, the poet describes the spirits and mourners who come to lament the fallen youth. Which of the following figures is explicitly portrayed as a herd abandoned deer struck by an envenomed dart, representing Shelley's own self portrait in the poem? Read the question again, then answer. Which of the following figures in Adonais is explicitly portrayed as a herd abandoned deer struck by an envenomed dart, means a poisonous dart? And it also represents Shelley's own portrait in this pastoral elegy. So, which figure here represents Shelley himself? Yeah, the mountain shepherd who made melancholy songs. The mountain shepherd who made melancholy songs. So, Adonais is a pastoral elegy by Shelley which mourns the death of John Keats. Tell me, which pastoral elegy by Milton mourns the death of Edward King? Which pastoral elegy by Milton laments the death of his Cambridge friend Edward King? Which pastoral elegy by John Milton laments the death of his Cambridge friend Edward King? It is Lycidas. It is Lycidas. Correct. Who wrote Elegy Written in a Country Churchyard, published in 1751? Who wrote Elegy Written in a Country Churchyard, published in 1751? It's by Thomas Gray. It's by Thomas Gray. It's by Thomas Gray. Right? Okay. Next. Ayo. Okay. Tell me this one. In John Keats's epic fragment, Hyperion, the transition of power from the Titans to the Olympian gods is symbolically mirrored through a shift in aesthetic and philosophical consciousness. Which specific literary or intellectual source heavily informed Keats's conceptualization of this cosmic supersession and tragic decay? Which source has played a very important role in John Keats's epic fragment Hyperion? Yes, it is. Volney's Les Ruins or Meditations on the Revolutions of Empires. Volney's Les Ruins or Meditations on the Revolutions of empires? Tell me. We know that John Keats was a late romantic. Who are the major late romantic essayists you know? Who are the major late romantic essayists you know? Charles Lamb, Leigh Hunt, William Hazlitt, Thomas De Quincey, right? Thomas De Quincey, Hazlitt, Leigh Hunt, Charles Lamb, all of them are very important, right? Please look up their works again. All right, next. So now we come to the late romantic essayist Charles Lamb, right? Charles Lamb wrote under the pseudonym Elia. Which essay of his famously describes a visit to the inner chambers of the Bank of England and reflects on the grandeur of the public funds versus the poverty of the writer? Answer this question from Charles Lamb. It is the South Sea House. The South Sea House by Charles Lamb famously describes a visit to the inner chambers of the Bank of England and reflects on the grandeur of public funds versus the poverty of the writer. Tell me, who wrote the critical essay on the knocking at the gate in Macbeth? It talks about the porter scene in Macbeth. Who wrote on the knocking at the gate in Macbeth? It talks about the porter scene in Macbeth. Act 2, Scene 3. Who wrote it? It's by Thomas De Quincey. It's by Thomas De Quincey. Right? Okay. Next. Now let's talk about William Hazlitt. William Hazlitt's essay on the pleasure of hating is known for its bitter, misanthropic brilliance and deep psychological insight. In which collection of essays was this piece originally published? So, in which essay collection do you find the essay on the pleasure of hating by William Hazlitt? It is. No, Ranjit, it is not option A. It is the plain speaker. It is the plain speaker. All right. You find this essay on the pleasure of hating in the collection The Plain Speaker by William Hazlitt. All right. Okay. Now let's talk about Browning. Yeah. In Robert Browning's dramatic monologue, Fra Lippo Lippi, the painter monk breaks off into a famous defense of realistic art versus conventional religious abstraction. What specific physical detail or action immediately prompts the watchman to capture Lippo at the very beginning of the poem? Why is he captured by the watchman? Why is he captured by the watchman? Because it is C. He is singing a lusty secular song out loud while roaming the streets of Florence near dawn. He's singing a lusty secular song out loud while roaming the streets of Florence near dawn. Tell me, was Florence the setting of Ben Jonson's Every Man in His Humor? Is it true or false? Was Florence the setting of Ben Jonson's Every Man in His Humor? As you all know, it's a popular comedy of humor by Ben Jonson. It's a popular comedy of humor by Ben Jonson. Every Man in His Humor. So yes, Florence was the setting of Ben Jonson's comedy of humor called Every Man in His Humor. Tell me, is it true that Shakespeare had acted in this play? Is it true that Shakespeare had acted in the play Every Man in His Humor? Had Shakespeare acted in the play Every Man in His Humor? Yes, Shakespeare had acted in the play Every Man in His Humor. Every Man in His Humor. Right. Next. Alfred Lord Tennyson's In Memoriam. It reflects deeply on the Victorian crisis of faith brought on by contemporary science. In which specific section of this elegy does Tennyson famously write this line? The wish, that of the living whole. No life may fail beyond the grave, derives it hollow from the grave, directly confronting the cold indifference of nature, as he illustrates through his phrase, red in tooth and claw. So, in which section of this elegy do you find these lines? The wish, that of the living whole. No life may fail beyond the grave. It's from section 55, correct? It's from section 55. Very good. Tell me, this collection of elegies was published in which year? In Memoriam was published in which year? In Memoriam was published in which year? It was published in 1850. 1850. It is the same year in which Dickens's David Copperfield was also published. It's the same year in which Dickens's David Copperfield was also published. 1850 was actually the annus mirabilis of Tennyson, because in 1850, Tennyson became the poet laureate. He married his lady love, Emily Selwood, and also his masterpiece, In Memoriam, was published. It's a collection of 132 elegies, which laments the death of his best friend, Arthur Henry Hallam. It's a collection of 132 elegies, which mourns the death of his best friend, Arthur Henry Hallam. Okay, right. Next. Okay, so Vallath has brought to you mentorship programs. We have started mentorship programs for anything and everything that you guys might need. So the mentorship that we are talking about now is communication and confidence mentorship. Suppose you have interviews to face. Suppose you're going for PhD interviews or assistant professor interviews. And if you are scared about how to speak, then this mentorship program will really help you. Okay. So it's a one-to-one mentorship program where you will be allotted a mentor who will give you special guidance, one-to-one sessions, flexible timings, special guidance, special care. Okay, right? Okay. And if you are wondering at which number you would be contacting, please contact at this number 87146 34501. I will repeat 87146 34501. It's the number of our mentorship coordinator of Vallath. So if you want, you can contact her and a mentor will be allocated to you accordingly. So it's the confidence and communication mentorship, a mentorship which will teach you, which will guide you about how to communicate in academia with confidence. Okay, right. Next. Now let's talk about Thomas Carlyle's Sartor Resartus. As we all know that Thomas Carlyle is a major scholar of the 19th century, right? So in Thomas Carlyle's Sartor Resartus, what is the core philosophical concept behind the philosophy of clothes? Tell me. Yes. Here the philosophy is that human society and institutions are outward symbols of inner spiritual realities. Correct. Yes. Sartor Resartus, the tailor, retailer, or the tailor repatched. That's the subtitle. Is it true that Thomas Carlyle had coined the phrase condition of England in his work Chartism? Is it true? Is it true that Thomas Carlyle had coined the phrase condition of England in his work Chartism? In his work Chartism? Yes, Thomas Carlyle had coined the phrase condition of England in his work Chartism. All right. Yes. Tell me, is it true that Charles Dickens had dedicated his novel Hard Times to Thomas Carlyle? Yes. Charles Dickens had dedicated his novel Hard Times to Thomas Carlyle because Hard Times was a novel which critiqued the contemporary philosophy of utilitarianism. And both Dickens and Carlyle were against this philosophy of utilitarianism. That's why Dickens had dedicated his 1854 novel Hard Times to Thomas Carlyle. Okay, right. Next. Now let's talk about George Eliot. In George Eliot's Middlemarch, subtitled A Study of Provincial Life, which character represents the failed intellectual pursuit of finding the key to all mythologies? So, who was working on this book in George Eliot's Middlemarch, subtitled A Study of Provincial Life? It is Edward Casaubon. It is Edward Casaubon. Correct. So, Middlemarch is subtitled A Study of Provincial Life. Which novel is subtitled A Tale of Manchester Life? Which novel is subtitled A Tale of Manchester Life? Which novel is subtitled A Tale of Manchester Life? Mary Barton. Mary Barton. A Tale of Manchester Life by Elizabeth Gaskell. Mary Barton. A Tale of Manchester Life by Elizabeth Gaskell. By Elizabeth Gaskell. Very good. Mary Barton, A Tale of Manchester Life by Elizabeth Gaskell. Was Elizabeth Gaskell the biographer of Charlotte Bronte? Was Elizabeth Gaskell the biographer of Charlotte Bronte? Yes, Elizabeth Gaskell was the biographer of Charlotte Bronte. Which pseudonym was used by Charlotte Bronte in his novels, in her novels? Which pseudonym was used by Charlotte Bronte in her novels? It is Currer Bell. Currer Bell. Charlotte Bronte used the pseudonym Currer Bell in her novels, like Jane Eyre, for example, that was published in 1847, the same year in which Emily Bronte's only novel, Wuthering Heights, was published. Okay, right. So I think let's move on to the next question. Which industrial novel by Charles Dickens features the fictional town of Coketown and critiques utilitarianism through the character Thomas Gradgrind. Very easy. It is Hard Times. Hard Times or For These Times by Dickens features the fictional town of Coketown, and it critiques utilitarianism through the character of Thomas Gradgrind. Hard Times. Okay. Which critical text famously formulated the core doctrine of English aestheticism by asserting that art should be independent of all didactic and moral purpose, declaring that art proposes nothing whatever but to minister to aesthetic delight? It is the conclusion of Walter Pater's Studies in the History of the Renaissance. This critical text famously formulated the core doctrine of English aestheticism by asserting that art should be independent of all didactic and moral purpose. And it declared that art proposes nothing whatever but to minister to aesthetic delight. Yes, art for art's sake. Correct. In the manifesto-like preface to the picture of Dorian Gray, Oscar Wilde states that all art is quite useless. Within the framework of Finlessian aestheticism, what precise philosophical implication does this statement carry? It implies that art transcends the utilitarian strictures of morality and social utility, existing entirely for its own self-contained formal perfection. Yes, correct. Option B. So that's all for tonight from our side. I really hope you guys loved the session and also enjoyed answering these questions. And do contact us if you need any sort of mentorship from Vallath. Okay, so it's the weekend already. So do have a lovely weekend ahead. All the very, very best to all the MPPSC candidates who will be appearing for exam this Sunday. All the very, very best to all of you from the entire team of Vallath. We know that you will do great. So all the very best. And to all of you, please take care, keep studying. And the team of Vallath is always here with you. If you need anything, just come to us. Okay? I will see you all again on Monday, exactly at 9:30 p.m. with a new session with more revision. Please like this session and we will meet each other again on Monday, exactly at 9:30 p.m. No, Shima, I'm from West Bengal. I live in Kolkata of West Bengal. Okay, right. So everyone, please like the session. Bye. Take care. Good night. See you all again on Monday. Bye. Good night.